Good morning. Today we're going to work some example problems from practice 13.3, solving quadratic equations by factoring. The first four problems, the directions say use the zero product property to solve the equations. The zero product property just says that if I have two things that are multiplied to equal zero, then I know that one of these two things, the one on the left or the one on the right, have to be zero. That's the only way I can multiply two things together to get zero. So for the first four problems, it's pretty simple. You just take each of the two factors and set them equal to zero. So for example, if I do number 3 for you, you take the first parenthesis, 2x plus 5, and set it equal to 0 and find out what value of x makes that true. So we'll subtract 5 from both sides, and then we'll divide 2 on both sides, and so we get x equals negative 5 over 2, or obviously that's negative 2.5 if you like a decimal better. And then we do the other factor, so x minus 4 equals 0, add 4 to both sides, and x equals 4. So I have solved that equation using the zero product property. Now that was pretty simple because they had already factored some trinomial and got it into those two factors. On the other half of the paper, you'll see that what I'm talking about, if we solve each quadratic equation by factoring, first we've got to get those two factors that we had in the first four problems. So if we do number 5, the most simple way to do that is to factor using the box that we did in the previous unit. And when we did that, we took the square term, or the quadratic term, we put it in the top left-hand corner of the box, and we took the constant term, or the number with no variable, and put it in the bottom. Then we multiplied those two things together, and we wrote factors. And in this case, there's only one set of factors. After we factored, we looked at the sign of the constant term, and that tells us in this case to add. So if we add 1p and 2p, we get 3p, and that is, in fact, what it says our answer should be. Now, if it were negative 3p, we would put negative 1p and negative 2p in these blocks, but since it says positive 3p, then we put positive 1p and positive 2p in that box. So then, if you remember doing the box, we factored, took a greatest common factor out from left to right in the two rows. So in the top row, p to the second and 1p has a common factor of p. In the bottom row, 2p and positive 2 have a common factor of 2. So that means that one of our factors is p plus 2. When we do the same process vertically, we get the greatest common factor of p to the second and 2p, and that is p. And the greatest common factor of 1p and 2, there is no greatest common factor, so we always use 1. 1 is a common factor to anything. And so there's our other factor. So p squared plus 3p plus 2 is equal to p plus 2, that quantity, times p plus 1, that quantity. So now, as we did before, we can use our zero product property that says one of those have to be equal to 0. So we set each of those individually equal to 0, and we solve for our variable. P plus 2 equals 0. We subtract 2 from both sides, and we get negative 2. P plus 1 equals 0. We subtract 1 from both sides, and we get p equals negative 1. And so then we look for our answer choice that has negative 2 and negative 1, and that would be D, as in dog. I hope that helped, and you have good luck on doing the rest of the even problem.